All right, welcome into the Auburn Live show. AuburnLive.com. Go subscribe if you haven't. I think we're running 50% off right now, so go take advantage of that. This is the Monday morning quarterback edition of the Auburn Live show. As always, we have former Auburn quarterback Ben Leard with us to recap the game. Ben, I know this one hits hard. I know how you feel about Georgia and this rivalry. 42-10. I mean, I don't know. I mean, everybody's surprised. I mean, it's basically the spread. I mean, they pretty much hit the spread. I think Vegas had it at 49.5, the over-under, and the spread was basically 30. So I said in our modcast, I'm like, well, that means it's like a 40-10 game, whatever. So they kind of hit it, barely went over, but it's kind of what we thought and what should have happened. So what were your thoughts watching it? Another beatdown in Athens.
There is a reason that Vegas has big buildings, right? I mean, they're good at what they do. They know what they're looking at. They can see that one team is overwhelmingly better than the other. And most importantly, they just got more guys. They're better coached. And on top of that, they're playing in a extremely difficult place to play. I had zero preconceived notion to think that Auburn would go into Athens and pull out a win. But you can't help but get frustrated with just horrific offensive line play. Horrific. And number one, everybody can go back and look at that fake punt. And if someone didn't miss a block, or if Shanker would have broken that tackle, it would have been different. But still, what's the point? I mean, I just don't understand some of the decisions that are being made, from fakes or going for it on consecutive 4th and 10s, and some of the play calling that happened against LSU. And it seems very much in desperation. And yes, defensively they gave up 42 points. The Georgia running attack absolutely gashed Auburn on the ground. I mean, it was over 500 yards of offense. I think they got almost 300 yards on the ground or more. Gave up multiple rushing touchdowns. But I'm just a guy that puts it on the offense. If you don't sustain drives, you continuously turn the ball over, you go 3 and out, and multiple times consecutively, you are only asking your defense to run out of gas. And against a team like Georgia, those things you're going to get hurt. They're going to take advantage of opportunities to score and really beat you down. And that's exactly what happened Saturday. I mean, it truly, you look at the players on the hoof, they're Georgia's defense versus Auburn's offensive line, not even close. You look at Auburn's defense versus Georgia's offensive line. Now, mind you, that's the best performance Georgia's offensive line has had this season. But I mean, it's not even close. It all boils down to the staff, the head coach, recruiting the young men that can compete at that level. There are several on Auburn's roster that can. The Derek Halls, the Colby Woodens, the DJ James, Kaufman's. And I think Wesley Steiner is improving week after week after week as a force at the middle linebacker position. Obviously, Tank is in my opinion, he is one of the most talented running backs in the country. but he is hands down the most underutilized, underappreciated talent that I think Auburn has ever seen wear this jersey. It's not even close. And they end up finding themselves in such deficits that they can't rely on Tank to be Tank. You've got another running back in Jarquez Hunter that's extremely talented as well. Obviously, the play that he made, the game was out of hand at that point, but it was still phenomenal. And there's just you get yourself so far, the deficit becomes so large, you get yourself so far away from what you want to have as an identity that it's just Katie bar the door. And on top of that, it's to Georgia, which hurts. I mean, it sucks, man. I mean, Georgia's won 6 in a row. They've absolutely dominated Auburn in those 6 in a row. They own Auburn in Athens at this point. They really own Auburn, period, for the last 15 years.
15 of 18 meetings. And I include the SEC championship game because it's part of the the series. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's Auburn, Athens, Atlanta, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you got to. It's still the teams versus the teams.
Yeah.
And man, I just the way that Georgia has risen in a short period, in a fairly short fashion. Kirby and his staff and the athletic department, the university, the meteoric rise that they have had from a football perspective over the last several years, to me, is a blueprint. And it all starts with synergy from the president to the AD to the head coach. And then in a very, very close second, it is recruiting as number one. If you do not have a staff and a head coach, most importantly, that is not willing to absolutely break the bank from an effort perspective on recruiting, if they're not willing to go all out on recruiting, it is an absolute lost cause. If you can't get the dudes, you might as well be the Vandy of the SEC. It's not even close. And I'm fearful that while there are multiple coaches on Auburn's staff, Zach Etheridge, Jimmy Brumbaugh, Cadillac, Drew Fabianich, I mean, these guys they're diehard recruiters. They are great recruiters, and they are passionate about getting talented young men on campus and getting them enrolled and playing at Auburn. I get that. But for some reason, there is a hard stop somewhere. And I think Gus left the cupboard bare, and it has not helped any efforts in the fact that Brian just something's not clicking. And then on top of that, once they get here, I just don't see certain positions, most importantly offensive line. I can't begin to tell you how disappointed I am watching this offensive line. I mean, they are, and it starts with Will Friend. 100%. It absolutely starts with Will Friend. They have not. The offensive line has gotten worse. They have gotten egregiously worse. And granted, I understand they've had some injury issues, but I don't care. It's assignment football. Get in somebody's way. You watch Saturday's ball game?
In somebody's way. That is pretty much all you're supposed to do. I mean, that's like the basics, right? Just get in their way at least. That's the minimum.
Man, look, there were so many Ole blocks on Saturday. I mean, it absolutely it pisses me off to watch. I mean, it's hat on a hat, right? It to me, it's common sense. A ball player being a ball player. Don't overthink the situation. Is that coaching? Is that the kid? Whatever that is. But if you're looking at the line of scrimmage and you see, okay, and let's say you're a guard, right? Or even a tackle with a man on your outside. Let's say Shanker's on your right, or whatever the scenario may be. There's one more offensive player that is to your immediate right as a right tackle or right guard. There's one defensive player. So just process of elimination leads you to believe and understand that your guy to your right is going to pick up that person. Period. Well, then you go to the other threats that are coming in your direction, right? You've got let's say a guard to your interior left. He's got a guy head up. So what's his freaking job? Okay, I'm going to block that guy. Well, I'm looking dead ahead of me, and there's Nolan Smith. There is, one of the most prolific pass rushers and defenders in the country. I don't care if he comes on a delayed stunt, a delayed blitz, or if he's head up on me. I am sure as hell not going to let him come without me putting a hand on him. And Hope, that happened multiple times on Saturday. Bear Alexander, the defensive tackle from Georgia, the true freshman, dude, I mean, it was basically there were times where Auburn's offensive line would hinge on their right or left foot and just open up the gate to Georgia's defensive front. No wonder Robbie Ashford was getting frustrated. No wonder. I mean, you got a freshman quarterback that's running for his life. He's inaccurate to begin with in the passing game. That's if he has a perfect pocket and time to throw the football. But when he is absolutely running for his life, you can't expect any positive to come out of that. And
no,
they're just
throwing it away all game. I mean, I don't even know how many throwaways he had, but it was probably it was probably like every 4 or 5 times he dropped back, he would just have to launch it because nobody would be open and he'd be out of the pocket.
It's not even close, man. It's just, it's aggravating to watch. It's frustrating. When Georgia goes up 14-0, it honestly feels like it's 35-0.
Oh, it was over. It was just a matter of, trying to commend the defense for hanging in there. It was, you're just wondering, Auburn gets that turnover in the field goal. And it was just kind of like for a minute they're hanging around. But you knew the game was not, it was over. I mean, it was going to take an absolute miracle.
And so, all right, so fast forward it to, that game's that game. It's awful. It sucks.
Yep.
Fast forward it to Saturday against Ole Miss, which is a scoring juggernaut.
Yeah,
probably one of the most improved defenses in the SEC.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a double-digit line. It's like a 2-touchdown line. Auburn hasn't been that kind of underdog to Ole Miss in like 2 decades.
Worst opening line in over 20 years to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I just
not good. Not good.
I hate being so critical. I do, because I know these kids they are working their tails off. It is no fault of their own from the standpoint of effort. And I feel like I'm putting perfume on a pig. But
we should start the podcast. We should be like, all right, say one thing nice, Ben.
I know it's like you're talking to your kids. And it's so hard to find something nice to say. Like, I never in a million years thought that I would be watching one of the Carlson brothers be attempting a field goal, and I ultimately expected it to be a miss. I mean, it's been so inconsistent, even from a kicking game. I mean, and when you get when you cause a turnover, when they strip sacked Stetson Bennett on that 3rd down early in the game, down 14-0, that was a great opportunity. A great opportunity. Well, they just flutter it away with 3 consecutive crap plays. And attempt a chip shot field goal and down 14-3, and opportunity wasted. And you got to give credit to Georgia. I mean, obviously they buckled down when they needed to. They, in the famous words of Larry Munson, they hunkered down when necessary. But still, man, it just you're watching a train wreck, and you can't help but think the posing lack of ability to compete versus Ole Miss. Then then you've got Arkansas, which at this point seems like a possible winnable game, but realistically, is it? Then when you have Texas A&M, which, in my opinion, if it wasn't for an awful 2-point conversion play call by Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M should have beaten Alabama Saturday in Tuscaloosa. They should have. Then, well, guess where you're going? And it is. Bryce Young will be back full steam ahead. Their defense is hands down best in the country. I don't know. I don't know that Auburn will beat Western Kentucky at this point. And it's just it's deflating, man. It is so deflating. So
It's
deflating.
one of those seasons, yeah. It's 2012 or 2008 all over again in terms of just the sort of hopelessness you feel in the season. Because you just know there's such limitations offensively that it's hard to go into a game and find any reason to think that that you're going to win in most of these games. And defense is fine. Defense is decent. It's fine. But if your offense is as inept as it is, it just doesn't matter. It just
because it puts a huge asterisk or dark cloud over. And I know I've been hard on Kiso from a play calling perspective, but I know it is an extremely difficult proposition to call offensive plays with an offensive line that won't touch anybody. What do you do?
Yeah.
And it is an impossible task.
Yeah.
And you eventually might as well just close your eyes and point your finger at anywhere on the playbook, call the play, know that you're going to run 3 plays and you're done.
Yeah.
It's not good, man. It is extremely. I know it's frustrating for those kids. I know it's frustrating for the staff, but there is a major disconnect somewhere. And ultimately, there's guys getting paid a lot of money right now on that staff to fail. And they're doing well. They're doing it well.
I know we're a little bit shorter on time this time around. I mean, I think we need to ask the question because look, by the time we talk next time, we generally talk, either late Sunday or Monday mornings in these games. By the time we talk next week, I don't know. I mean, I told our people that I thought Brian Harsin would make it to the end of the year at this point, just because it's there's a lot of factors going on. But I mean, I think they want to get rid of him before they announce an AD hiring. So, I still think that's the way it's trending, but these things can change. I think they can change pretty quickly. If they lose to Ole Miss, do you think he should be fired? I mean, fans are ready. Fans are ready for a change. If they lose to Ole Miss, you got a bye week. Just pull the plug, rip the Band-Aid off.
I think I certainly have, and I guess it's the choice of words when you talk regarding, do I think he should be fired?
Yeah. Do you think he will be?
Yeah.
What are the benefits? What are the pros and cons of doing it then? I mean, does it make any sense?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think, and this is just us, and from a perspective of the reality of them winning multiple games. You and I've talked about this several weeks ago. It's nil, right? The the writing is on the wall from the standpoint of it is glaringly obvious that Auburn will have a new head football coach in 2023.
Yeah.
And I'll never be someone that says, fire him right now. I don't think that's fair to Brian Harsin and his family and whatnot. It's just, I'm, as a man, it's difficult to have that solid of a statement. But from the standpoint of logistics, regardless of whom it is, I do think that ultimately you need to make the decision quickly. And I think the most opportune time is during that open week. And most importantly, because you have the possibility, it's slim, but you have a possibility of salvaging a great deal of the progress that has been made from a recruiting standpoint. If you wait until after the Iron Bowl, I think it's to the detriment of the recruiting position because of early signing period coming that's just right around the corner following the Iron Bowl. And there's so much uncertainty surrounding, if there is a lot of uncertainty surrounding what in the world's going on with Brian Harsin, most importantly. And number two, who is possibly the next head coach. So a matter of several weeks, essentially, in that scenario is decades. And a lot of ground can be made up with regards to the salvaging recruits, salvaging young men that are currently on the roster that you hope that remain on the roster. And then you can discontinue operating in the back channels. You can be out front. You can understand who the possible candidates are and, be transparent, not necessarily transparent with the fans, because ultimately it doesn't matter what the fans think. There's not a poll going around asking, this is not a popularity vote, and it shouldn't be. The president and the AD ultimately should make the decision on the head coach, period, ride or die with whomever it is, but you damn well better make the right pick.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation. I mean, we can have it. We can talk about it. I'm on Twitter. I'm on our message boards. We can talk about like whether it should be fired now, or we can talk about it. It's pointless. Decision's already been made. We can talk about it if we're blue in the face. It's a waste of breath unless you just want to have the conversation to have the conversation, and that's totally fine. It's totally fine. But just understand that there is no conversation to be had, like in the higher ranks. Decision's done. He's not returning. So you can talk about it. It's fine. Perfectly fine thing to discuss. Or you could shift your focus and start talking about who they need to hire, what needs to happen, structurally to back the next coach, things like that. I guess there's plenty of time for that. But talking about whether Brian Harsin deserves to be fired after a year and a half or 2 years, none of that matters at this point.
It doesn't. There's just, you said it best. The decision has been made. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When do they rip the Band-Aid off and give the man his $15 million and he rides off into the sunset and Auburn moves on and so does he. And again, I hate it. I do. I hate it most importantly for his family, for Davis, a young man that's, he is an unbelievably talented young man and young football player. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're the manager at Walmart. To lose a job is difficult, regardless of buyout or not. It's a difficult situation to be in as a provider. So I hate that's where things are. But then again, they'll be fine. They'll be okay. But ultimately, man, it is you whomever is on your list, that being whomever is on Auburn's list, they better be able to recruit and they better be willing to recruit. I'm talking recruit. I'm talking.
And both those matter, not just willingness to go out there, but actually be able to close the deal, because I'm going to tell you, Brian Harsin can't do either.
He can't do it. And then I don't know if it's a can't and a won't.
It's a won't. It's a won't, and it's both. It's a won't, and he doesn't connect with players anyway.
I just don't get it. There's been a major disconnect since the time that he set foot on campus, and for some reason there's just not a connection with the young men that are being recruited. Now I'll say this: I mean, he has an unbelievable amount of support from the young men in the locker room, because I think most importantly they see how hard he works. But they have developed that amount of respect over time. They've seen it over time, and you are not given the luxury of time in the recruiting process. So it is an immediate speed dating scenario. And if those kids don't gravitate to you out of the gate, they ain't coming.
Yeah.
And that's just it. And you better be willing to morph yourself a little bit and be able to discuss and connect, and not only with them, but their entourage. You can't do it, they're not coming. And ultimately Auburn is paying the price for that, for multiple years of poor recruiting. And then on top of that, lack of development at key positions.
Yeah, personnel, and I know we got to go. Personnel is that's a combination of Gus and Harsin on where they're at right now. I mean, Harsin's only been there a year and a half, whatever. Gus is still responsible for some of the personnel deficiencies, which really is the offensive line. That's really the most glaring personnel deficiency issue on the team. I think every other position group on the team, I feel like you could find some silver linings or some potential there. But the offensive line, the personnel issue, that's a both of them problem. That's a recruiting problem and a transfer portal issue with Harsin. That's a recruiting problem with the previous staff. But everything else, whether it's turnovers in dang near every game they play, the amount of fumbles, the second half woes, that stuff's coaching. I've never seen anything like what they do in the second half. Now going back, nearly 9 or 10 games against good competition. It's I mean, you could just take it to the bank. You just take it to the bank. And I wish I had an answer. Brian Harsin should have answers, and he doesn't. So I sure don't have them. All right, let's get out of here on this one. Ole Miss. I mean, is there a shot? Another week? I mean, can you get back to making some big plays? You're not playing Georgia, but I mean, Ole Miss is going to score a certain amount of points. I mean, Georgia's the same way Georgia or somebody like that would. Is it just another game where it's like, well, you better force 3 turnovers somehow? Is that where we're at, just with this team basically against a good team?
I think so. I think you are solely reliant on the defense winning this football game for you, hands down. If you wake up Sunday morning and Auburn has won the game miraculously in Oxford, there will be, I'd say, 3, maybe 4 turnovers that were caused defensively, and possibly some sort of defensive touchdown. You can go ahead and assume safely that Ole Miss is going to score 27 points.
Even with probably a turnover or 2.
Yeah. Do you think Auburn's offense can score 28?
They only got to 31 last year. They played pretty dang well.
And
it was at home.
I just don't see it.
Yeah. The only thing that they've got going in their favor potentially is Lane Kiffin. And the fact that he might go for it on 4th down. He might be cavalier, and it hurt him last year. I mean, Ole Miss, if they were smarter, could have won the game last year, but Auburn stopped them on 4th down multiple times. Maybe Lane, if he continues to be that cavalier, you might give Auburn a shot. I don't know why you would against Auburn. You almost want to just be like, look, we don't need to do all that, but that might give Auburn a couple of decent field position opportunities. But
yeah, I agree, and trust me, I hope I'm wrong, Hoke. I do. I mean, I will be glad to wear the dunce cap if Auburn somehow pulls out a win. But I'm a realist at the end of the day, and I just do not see it happening. I do not see if you figured out a scoring paradigm where you could match up Auburn's defense versus Ole Miss's offense, kind of like the spring game scenarios.
Yeah.
If you could figure that way out and you could come away win or lose, I would put money on Auburn to win that football game. But knowing that Ole Miss is going to score some points and knowing that Auburn is going to turn the football over and they are going to give up sacks and they are going to not block at the point of attack, and most importantly, they are struggling immensely to score touchdowns. It is a hard scenario to imagine that Auburn comes away with that from Oxford with a win.
Well, it's I was looking real quickly. I mean, Ole Miss is only won this game 6 times since 1971. I mean, that's how absolutely dominant Auburn has been in this series, including winning 6 in a row. And to walk in there right now, 2 touchdown underdogs, is so ridiculous. And just from historical purposes, the last 3 times Auburn has lost in Oxford: 1992, coaching change. The next time they lost in Oxford was 2008, coaching change. The next time they lost in Oxford, 2012, coaching change. So the last 3 times they've lost in Oxford, going back 30 years, only those 3 times, it's been a year where there's been a new coach the next year.
Well, there you go.
It's kind of more of an indictment, I think, on Ole Miss.
Yeah,
basically like, hold on, we lost in Oxford. Change it. We got to change.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Oh, scrap the whole program.
Yeah,
start over.
Yeah,
I know, man. It's tough, dude. It is so hard. I mean, it's frustrating. It's so. I mean, I don't even know that there aren't really even words.
I think people need to stay positive in that with NIL and with the transfer portal, things can turn around quickly. You have $100 million football facility going up. So I still think fans should focus on that. And that I think it's a quick fix. I think it's a quick turnaround. I really do. Are there personnel deficiencies? Yeah, there are. But man, there's a lot of positive things going on with the program outside of that, and a lot of other easy ways to get talent quickly if you harness the resources. So, I think just stay positive about whoever the next coach will be and the staff could be. And you potentially, look, you go out and land not saying that anything about the quarterbacks. I'm just saying hypothetically, you go land a primetime player or an impact player at a position here or there in the transfer portal, and really quickly you're back competitive.
Yeah, so, no, you're right. That is one thing that the portal provides you with the opportunity to be very quick, and the positions that are of need, most importantly in the offensive line, those are positions that the portal can provide you some absolute grown men, and that's what Auburn needs. They need road graders. They need grown men to play the offensive line in the SEC, and that's something that is of major importance to Auburn in the transfer portal, this year. And the opportunity's there. I mean, there's going to be young men that put themselves out there at every position, and I think that will play a role in how quickly and how aggressively Auburn moves toward a coaching change and an athletic director announcement and a head coaching announcement to give them the opportunity to build the roster and staff that they want in order to attract these young men and ultimately win football games. And that remains to be seen, but I agree with you that it can be fixed, and not just patched. It can be fixed, and there can be a lot of success coming in the near future if if the plan is executed correctly.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, let's get back at it next week. We'll see what happens. Auburn goes to Oxford. I think it's an 11 a.m. ESPN game, which will provide quite a bit of fodder. I can already go ahead and tell you how College Game Day is going to go leading up to that game. That's going to provide them a great opportunity to talk about Brian Harsin and his future leading into the Auburn Ole Miss game. So just kind of prepare yourself for some negative talk on College Game Day. That's part of it. And then they play at 11 a.m. against Ole Miss, and then you have a bye week. So we'll see what happens, man. Well, hey, it's another great week of weather, I'm pretty sure. Maybe a day
That's
of
right.
rain. But that's kind of what I'm excited about. Honestly,
Yeah.
The last 2 weeks, that's sort of been my escape, is trying to get outside and enjoy some good weather in between writing about just a disastrous football season.
I don't envy you having to be creative with stuff, man. So good luck with that.
I tried to be positive yesterday. I really did. I tried to be nothing but positive. I was like, I'm just going to try to find nothing but positive things to say in a story. And there are some, like Colby Wooden. I don't think people realize the kind of season he's having. He's a first-teamer All-SEC right now. Shanker might break some of his records from last year. I mean, there's some things to point to. I love Tank Bigsby's attitude, even though he's struggling. I feel like he's controlling what he can control. I don't see a lot of immaturity there. There's some different things, I guess, but you just got to look hard.
That's
you
right.
just got to look hard and try to have a perspective about it. So, all right, let's roll. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. AuburnLive.com. Go subscribe. 50% off right now. AuburnLive.com. For Ben and Justin, we'll see you next time. Bye.